Welcome to Tavern Talks. Get around, travelers. Welcome to Tavern Talks, the video podcast or the talk show where game masters, TTRPG content creators from around the world share their secrets, stories, and expertise on crafting the perfect TTRPG sessions. So, in this cozy virtual tavern, we'll be sitting down with experienced GMs and the creators to swap their tales, trade tips, and dive into the art of creating the unforgettable experiences. From world building to NPC crafting and session prep to improvisation, we're gonna cover it all. So grab a pinch of your favorite virtual ale, pull up a chair, and join the conversation. In this episode, we'll be chatting with Craig Tezrak Hatler, right?
Yep, that's right.
Mm-hmm. So, and we're gonna talk about, of course, his creations, Shadowlight and Personate, and also his ideas on TTRPG creation and also his tips because we also would like to know about how people to create their own unique systems. So, my first ever question is, who is Craig Hatler?
Craig Hatler is me. I am an IT and educational technology professional. I work for a private university in Raleigh, North Carolina, in the United States on the East Coast. So it's about 8 to 10 hours south of New York City, about 4 hours ish, 4 to 5 hours south of Washington D.C., which is the nation's capital. And I grew up closer to New Jersey. Sorry, to New York City in New Jersey. Lived in the tri-state area there for up until my kind of mid to late 30s, and then came down here. And so I am, like I said, I'm working at a small university in the IT department. I'm also a part-time instructor, professor of instructional technology, and that's kind of my professional life. And then I've been playing role-playing games and board games and card games for probably over 30 years, let's say. And so I started playing D&D in middle school. 10, 12, 11, 12, age, age 11, 12. Started with the basic red box. And then once I got to high school, to ninth grade, started in with second edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And then actually kind of diverted from there and started playing a variety of different games. Werewolf the Apocalypse, Shadowrun, Marvel's TSR, or TSR's Marvel RPG, Shadowrun. And then by later in high school, found the Star Wars role-playing game and by West End Games. So at the time, it was the second edition of the West End Games D6 system, and really just never stopped. Took the occasional break, but mostly, ran D&D, but have played more games than I can even think to count.
That's really nice. That's a nice journey. So what really sparked your interest actually in TTRPGs in the first place? That's why I want why you are playing these games.
Well, I was introduced to it by um, we have what's called gifted and talented in school, or I'm sure it still exists,
Mhm.
but basically, certain students kind of picked out for exceptional academic qualities and put into your programs. And it just so happens that when I was in, like I said, middle school, so I was around 11 or 12 years old, I had some classmates who introduced me to it. And I knew about it from the old cartoon, and I knew about it from some of the original video games like in television and Atari. Uh,
Mhm.
but I had never played the actual game before, so uh, that's how I got started. And yes, just the idea of collaborative storytelling with like-minded people, creating original worlds and settings. And of course, I grew up on He-Man and Masters of the Universe, like Voltron, Thundercat, GI Joe, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek. Star Trek I didn't get into a little till a little bit later in high school, but I mean, I've always been drawn to fictional properties and also too fictional properties that really didn't have a strong genre boundary between them. If you look at Masters of the Universe and you look at Thundercats and you look at Voltron, you have sci-fi and fantasy right next to each other. You know, in Voltron you've got Hagar, the witch who creates these robeasts, and in Thundercats you have Mumra, who's an evil wizard, and yeah. So I mean, the whole idea of this strong contrast was never really a thing for me. I always grew up with them kind of being side by side, and I've always enjoyed that, and I don't mind mixing my chocolate and peanut butter, so to speak.
Hmm. So, okay. So, do you have any kind of a favorite TTRPG system now? And back then, what was the like most favorite one for you for like a 10 or 15 years ago?
Let's see. So I think overall favorite has always been D&D. I would say it's probably a close runner-up would be, or a close neck and neck with each other would be, West End Games Star Wars and D&D. Um, although I've been a fan of D&D regardless of the edition. I mean, I played it in second, I third, fourth, and now fifth, and still interested in, we have the 50th anniversary of D&D this year, and the new 2024 edition of the books. And I'm still interested and intrigued. Unfortunately, Wizards of the Coast isn't the greatest. They have some business practices that could certainly be improved, and that's why I'm a strong proponent of open gaming and of people understanding that, okay, I'm not saying that you have to, but I'm saying that your enjoyment of the hobby would be improved and enriched by playing a variety of different games with a variety of different rule systems. But now, so as far as historically, yeah, D&D and Star Wars, even when Wizards of the Coast acquired, they had the license for Star Wars for a little while, and they had Saga Edition, which was their take on the Star Wars role playing game, and I thought it was very well done. And it used the D20 system, but it made something unique out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, More recently, I would say there's been a strong kind of a movement towards smaller press games and games that I hesitate to say rules light, but um, sorry about that. But games like Fate and Powered by the Apocalypse games, Apocalypse World, Dungeon World. I was introduced to quote unquote indie games or story games in the early 2000s through some conventions that I attended in New Jersey, and met up with started making connections with designers in the New York tri-state area, who actually some of them I was just able to reconnect with at a convention in New Jersey just a couple of weekends ago. It's called Metatopia, and it is specifically geared toward designers and their works in progress. So I consider myself very fortunate to have attended the convention, to reconnect with people that some people I haven't seen in 20 years or more. Um, and but yeah, the idea of giving the storytelling agency, kind of spreading it around the table, making it so that the GM isn't necessarily kind of the master. That terminology seems to be a little bit outmoded, and it puts a lot. Not only does it put a lot of power in the hands of a single person, but it also puts a lot of pressure on a single person. And when you have people, you'll have a group of people at the table. Everybody should, depending on the environment of the game, but everybody should feel comfortable treating the game master or moderator or whatever you want to call them as another player, and sharing the responsibility for, okay, I'm not just going to sit back and let the GM tell me a story. I'm going to have some tools in place. The game is going to give me some tools to help everybody feel like they contribute collectively, collaboratively together.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of this creativity as well, so you also created your own system. So I say system to okay, so to put your actually your words and remarks and your viewpoint to these TTRPG, let's say market. So what is your Shadowlight impersonator and why have you created this? And can you also describe a little bit about your mechanics?
Sure. The when I was part of a group when I lived in New Jersey, we kind of we were looking at creating an original fantasy world to publish, using the open gaming license to use the D&D rules. And it was around the time, it was on 2007, 2008 when Wizards decided to change to fourth edition. It was a pretty drastic change in mechanics and licensing, and we all said to each other, well, if we're going to put in all this work, we might as well create our own game. And that was the impetus for creating this original system to pair with our original world. But I started to feel like, considering that I have so much history of playing games in other genres and other settings and other, sci-fi, horror, steampunk, cyberpunk, um, I was like, well, why don't we have a universal system? And then why don't we have that universal system not just be universal, not just be your GURPS or your Fate, but to support a multiverse. To basically say, okay, every game that uses Shadowlight and Persona is a world in a multiverse that's accessible to every other world in the same multiverse. And it allows people to have it's part of what I was explaining before about the fiction and the mechanics being on a continuum with each other. Um, this system allows, if people wanted to, if I wanted to pick my character and bring it, and you're table A and you're running Shadowlight and Persona. I'm table B and I'm playing in a Shadowlight and Persona campaign. I want to take my character and I want to bring my character over and I want to sit at your table. Well, I can do that because we were using the same rules. We're speaking the same language. And not only is that on a mechanical basis, but it's also on a fiction basis because your world exists in this multiverse and so does mine.
Mm,
Um, so that was kind of the evolution of it. So it started out as, okay, we're just going to make our own rule system to support our world, but then I wanted to move in the direction of a multiverse and a system to support a multiverse. So um, the mechanics are intended to be, uh, I mean, I took inspiration from a variety of different games, and I am fully, 100% give credit where credit is due. I would not have had these ideas completely in a vacuum.
mm,
I have been inspired by Fate. Been inspired by Dogs in the Vineyard, by D&D, by a variation put out by Green Ronin called True 20, where they reduced everything down to, damage and everything being done by
mm,
D20 instead of having separate dice. So the inspirations have all come from the same place, but I guess really they all underscore kind of a philosophy that I like to have, which is I don't prefer character classes. I don't prefer levels as far as leveling up advancement, where you go up to level 2 and you get this big package dumped on you. Here's your new level 2 abilities. Like I I prefer advancement to be granular. I prefer it to be intentional. So, it's not just arbitrary. It's okay, well, I take the time to train in this thing, so I'm going to advance in this thing. I don't have to be shoehorned into a character class. I don't have to worry about, well, this is the character concept that I want to build, so I've got to take levels in this class and this class. Um, and I wanted there to be an element of investment and involvement by the on the part of the player where the
mm,
conversation and say, hey, I want my character to be able to do these things. Okay, well, we're not just going to look up a list of 50 feats in a book. We're going to talk about, we're going to have the rules as an underpinning of a kernel. And then you're going to tell me, I want my character to be able to do this. Okay, awesome. Let's figure out how we're going to express that mechanically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, like, can you describe the okay, like the core mechanics that if I ever look up the page, what I'm gonna see, and what sets them apart from? Of course, I get the points that sets them apart from the traditional D20 systems or other dice mechanics, but I really wonder, like, what is the thing that is like it gives us the click when we are playing it.
Sure. So it is based around a pool of D10s,
Mhm.
and everything all it comes down to what I call the challenge. So when you want to do a thing, you say you express what you want to do. I grab the rope and I swing across the chasm. Okay, so you're challenging the environment. So you're going to look and see if you have a skill that's appropriate to this type of challenge. You are going to grab as many D10s as your skill says that you have. You're going to roll them. You're going to look at your top die. So you're going to put the dice in order from highest to lowest. You're going to look at the top die. And then you on the part of the player, you are issuing this challenge to the environment. I'm the environment. I'm going to respond. The environment is hazardous, is perilous. There's a chance that you might hurt yourself. There's a chance you might plummet to your death. Um, so I'm going to roll something representing the environment, and we're going to each add a relevant modifier of some kind to the highest die that we rolled. Uh, if you if you beat me, then you succeed the challenge. If I beat you, then I succeed the challenge. And there's going to be some fallout from that. Um, the multiple D10s come in when there comes to a tie. So if the top die ties, if you and I both tie after we figure out the modifier, then we look at the next highest. And we look at the next highest after that. And if one of us runs out of dice, then the other person succeeds.
Oh, that's really nice, Nigel. Yeah.
And then that opens up is the opportunity to say, well, okay, you succeeded, but you succeeded on a tie, which means that you succeeded, but there's going to be some consequence.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be abilities that somebody could have that say, well, I'm going to force you. Like, let's say that I'm wearing a suit of power armor that is made of some high grade material and deflects laser blasts. Well, I might say that because of this armor that I'm wearing, I'm going to force you to yield. So I'm going to look at my highest die, but you're going to look at your next highest one. So I'm going to force you to yield one. Um, so we get to play around with the dice pool distribution and have it do some things that go beyond. I mean, you can certainly, if you want to, if you are a proponent of binary pass fail, you can do that. Um, but the distribution, the multiple dice, and the breaking of ties opens up opportunities to have more nuanced, success with cost, success with consequence. Um, and then also too, if you roll multiple unmodified tens, you earn criticals. So if you say roll it three tens in a row, if your top three dice are tens, and you succeed the challenge, then you'll earn two criticals for those two extra tens that you rolled. And then those criticals can be used to in the future they could fuel abilities, they could be an automatic success. It's really up to what the group decides. So there's defaults in place, but the I always I mean, and it comes from me liking to tinker with systems. Some people don't like to, and they'll just do things as written. Some people, but so that at least there's a default. There's a kernel. The kernel will tell you what the baseline is, and then from there, you want to stick with the baseline by all means. But if you want to tinker and you want to say, okay, well, maybe criticals do this. Okay, that's cool. Do you want to change your dice to D6s? Go for it. I mean, whatever,
Mhm.
do you want to say maybe instead of having a modifier, maybe your attribute score is your dice that you roll, and every attribute's kind of a category, so you don't have skills, you have attributes, and your attributes are the dice ratings. You could do that. I love tinkering, and I look forward to seeing people taking the kernel of the rules and doing interesting things with them.
Mm. So, was there any kind of like a challenging mechanic to develop for you, or and also how did you overcome it if there was for you?
Well, in the beginning, I mean, pretty much all of our work was amongst my group in New Jersey, and we play tested pretty extensively. We ran whole campaigns where we hit the road with the core and said, well, okay, this is missing or this doesn't work. I mean, yeah, I've been in situations where I've demoed just in the last few couple of months and said, well, this is, there's terminology that is confusing. There's terminology that I'm reusing over and over, and people are getting confused, and and it has to change. Or, I'm finding that. So I would say what was the most challenging? The most challenging for me has been teaching the system. So I have been, and I've been working on it for the last couple of years. So July of 2022 is where I decided I wanted to pick it up, polish it, and publish it. And really, the biggest challenge for me has been teaching it. So not just I'm not just been refining the rules, but also been creating, kind of doing my own instructional design. Like what resources can I make to put in front of somebody to make it more than just reading a pile of text to be able to understand the rules. So I have a variety of handouts that I've made. I've made quick reference sheets. I've rejiggered the character sheet, and just as extensively as I can, as many people as I can get interested in giving it a try.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Understandable. So, Um, do you have an approach, or how did you approach making the game like accessible to a wide range of players, or like including those into TTRPGs? Like, are there any tools or options like included for accommodating the neurodivergent players or those with disabilities or something?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because it's something that I would say when we were first working on it and in those early days that was not a consideration. But
Mhm,
is interesting is that in the course of doing my graduate coursework in educational technology, accessibility and what's called universal design was
mhm,
something that I definitely studied, and uh, it's certainly going to be something that I'm going to have to consider. I mean, I would say that there's room there's definitely room for improvement there in terms
mhm,
of it being accessible. Um, and I don't know where I'm gonna head with that. I mean, I still have work to do on I still have work to do on putting together a core guide. I have a
mhm,
basic game document, but my core guide is my SRD needs upgrading, updating, and then I want a core guide which combines the fiction and the mechanics. So, uh, but it is definitely something that's on my mind. It's definitely something that I consider important to me, and
mhm,
I will be looking for avenues to definitely address, it being more accessible,
mhm.
being read in digital formats, hyperlinked PDFs, and so on going forward in the future.
That's really nice. So I know that your system does have at least core document has safety tools, and yeah, it will be awesome if you can at least add some options for neurodivergent players or people with disabilities, for of course in terms of accessibility. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well,
hopefully,
and I mean, I would say that even just having the safety tools discussion is something that is going to address that because it's going to be handled on a group to group basis. So, um, having that introductory conversation to say, okay, what are some things that people need? Do we need, frequent breaks? Do we need the opportunity to walk away from the table if we need to? Do we need, um, you know, do we need to talk about subject matter? But you can't just have that introductory conversation and just let it fly for the rest of the game, whether it's 5 sessions or 50. You have to have periodic check-ins along the way to say, hey, is everybody still feeling comfortable? Does anybody need anything? You may have stars and wishes, for example, at the end of every session where people get to express things that they want to look forward to. But enjoy, safety and comfort and accessibility is definitely something that I've been introduced to
Mm-hmm.
even just within the last 4 or 5 years, but then to a larger degree as long as I've been playing at conventions, because at conventions it's harder. When you're in a more public environment, you don't have a whole lot of time to get across, okay, like, here's the themes of this game. If you're not into, you know, visceral body horror, don't play this game. Like, you have a lot of heavy lifting to do in a short period of time, and so safety tools have to be even more crucial in those types of environments.
Definitely. So, do you have any plan for like incorporating like future or upcoming community feedback like into your future updates or editions, or like do you have anything on your mind about the third party license? I know it's open; it will be open game, but I'm still asking it because like, what about third party licensing and stuff?
Well, right now it is released under Creative Commons CC BY. So all that requires is that if anybody wants to do anything with the rules or the fiction, all they have to do to attribute me. So basically, they say, they as long as they release and attribute to me, then they're welcome to do whatever they wish. My current thinking is to have basic game, to have core guide, which would be the expansion from the basic game, and then, I mean, kind of pie in the sky, down the road, I would like to see a physical book that is much more extensive. I do want to offer options for solo play. I want to offer options for GM-less play, and I want to include a lot of those campaign frames, like I said, to say, hey, here's right out of the gate, here's 5 campaign frames you have to choose from if you don't want to do as much heavy lifting off the ground. So that's my progression that I see. Now, you know, 20, we're right around the corner to 2025, and it's a start of a new year. So, and I think I felt more motivated and inspired to move forward with the project that way. Like I said, even just in the last 6 months, and
Yeah.
as I've introduced it to new people, so I'm pretty excited.
So hopefully, yeah, my next question will be is what is your secret sauce for your tips and tricks when creating TTRPGs? For of course new TTRPG creators.
Um, Play as many games as you can possibly play. Um, Play with as many people as you can possibly play with. In as many different environments as you can. Join home games, join games at your local game store. Uh, Play with as many different people running games, because some people will be completely content with playing games. They'll never have a single itch, whatever, to make a homebrew, character class, or depending on the game you're talking about, a homebrew playbook for Apocalypse World, original moves, original stunts for Fate, et cetera, et cetera. Some people will never have that, but if they feel that itch, because it's almost like a progression. It's like, well, okay, you get to be a GM, you start running games, and maybe that opens the door to having a more critical eye on how games, and maybe you start saying, well, I think this could work differently if I fix it or if I change it. Maybe this would be if I create something whole cloth myself. You open the door from player to, if you get that itch, to GM, from there to be designer. Um, I can only speak for myself, and that I really, at the moment, only have one game, even though it's got a variety of different campaign frames.
Mm-hmm.
But um, that would be my secret sauce. Is just be diligent and be like, don't limit yourself. Don't be like, oh, I don't want to learn new games. Well, if you want to, if you decide, if you figure out that making games is what you're all about, what you want to be about, then you gotta dive into everything you can possibly get your hands on.
Mm-hmm. That was really nice. And my last question is actually, where do you see the future of your TTRPG system in the like in the 5 to 10 years?
Oh, goodness gracious. I mean, it has evolved even just. I mean, it's we started it in 2007, so I mean, we're looking at what 17 years that it's been around for, and when I started it, I don't think I envisioned it where it being right now, where it is, it being where it is right now. So, um, if I'll speak in hypotheticals, I'll say um, if I make it to where I'd like to be, where I have that physical copy, um, and it provides all these additional tools, um, I would be very happy and very content with more people playing, with more people turning around and taking in the game and the rules and making their own games. So if that's where it winds up being in 5 to 10 years, then I would be very happy.
And hopefully it will be.
I agree. Correct.
So thank you for joining this conversation. Actually, I really appreciate all of the content creators in this hobby because we need content creators. We need TTRPG creators. We need, of course, players as well. But if if we need content creators, that means that we need more games. And also, please help content creator guys. Please help them because if you help us, we're going to create something more and more and more beautiful and unique for you. And it will motivate us to create something more in your taste. Let's say.
Exactly. 100%.
I'm gonna put. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna put Craig Hadler's links down below. So please help him. And if you're gonna download, of course you can. Yeah, he's not charging you for his system right now, but
It is pay what you
want.
want.
Oh yeah, pay what you want, please. At least some bucks. Of course, you're all free to put anything you want. So please just pay what you want. Have a great day, and thank you, Craig, again.
And thank you for letting me speak on your forum.
It's all okay.